Hey everybody, I'm Al. Welcome to Hands On Games, and today we are looking at what I consider to be a masterpiece of solitaire gaming. It's Navajo Wars, designed by Joel Toppin, published by GMT Games. This game is just fun. It kicks ass. I love it. I can't say enough about this game. From the thematic aspects, the design, the mechanics, the rules, the procedural aspect of it. Everything just oozes gameplay and fun and care, for lack of a better term, for the subject material. So I could go on forever, but I'm not going to do that. Let's get to the hands-on portion of the video. Alright, so we're going to do this hands-on episode a little different than normal. What you're looking at is the end of my most recent game, where I lost a major defeat to the Spanish about halfway through the deck when we got to the settlers colonized New Mexico victory point check. I was eliminated. So what's going on in this game? Well, you are playing the Navajo, or the Dene as they referred to themselves, here in the American Southwest. The scenario that I've been playing over and over and over is the Spanish scenario. So it's about 200 years, starting in 1598, going for about 220 years as the Spanish move from the east, Santa Fe, into New Mexico and Arizona and Utah. Both military and religious presence moving in, trying to reduce both your military power and your cultural power. And over here on this track along the left, the Dene military and cultural strengths will be tracked with these two counters. The Spanish have two counters as well, ferocity and morale. So, the two most important counters in the game are right here. You want to try to keep the Navajo military higher than the Spanish morale. That's how you're going to stay in the game and hopefully get through the deck and at least score a minor victory, if not a major victory. It is a lot harder than it sounds. So that's what's going to be happening over here on the track. It's also tracking your action points and movement points, and there's counters for those as well. Okay. So this is where you're going to spend a lot of your time watching things move up and down. What's going on everywhere else? Well, imagine that you're a leader of the Dene and an elder, and in front of you on the ground you have a rawhide that has been, has some artwork on it and stones laid out as you work with your tribal elders to come up with strategies for what your family is going to do this coming season, and you've laid out stones representing the different areas. That's what this map is representing. So there are 6 major gameplay areas, a 7th, Canyon de Chelly, which is a sort of a safety zone, a place of a sacred place for the Navajo. Go ahead and read about Canyon de Chelly and Kit Carson for more information about what eventually happened to the Navajo there. It's not pretty. So here you are, you're settling these lands, or you've settled these lands. This is your ancestral home. And pressure is going to be coming from Santa Fe and the east. For those of you that are familiar with Victory Point games, States of Siege games, it feels very much like a States of Siege game on steroids. You're going to have pressure coming this way, and you've got to keep pushing it back. And it is not easy. It's relentless, and it's a challenge. All right, so that's what's laid out in front of you, are these 6 areas in the Canyon de Chelly, which are very, very important when it comes to the victory point checks, which are going to come regularly throughout the game. When I set up the next game, I'll show you how the deck is built, but just know that these easternmost areas easternmost territories that are closer to the enemy are worth more victory points. San Juan 3, Shiprock 4, Zuni Mountains 3, and then as you move west to safer lands, they're worth less victory points if you have a family there. Hopi Land 2, Black Mesa 1, Monument Valley 2, no victory points for having any families in Canyon de Chelly when a victory point check comes. Part of the challenge of this game is you never know when the victory point checks are coming, and they can really mess with your strategy. It adds a tension to the game. It adds a sense of doom to the game. When you're unsure about what's coming next. As I play this game, I realized the deck is stacked against me, which I think is a great, allegory to exactly what happened in real life to the Navajo. The deck was definitely stacked against them. So that's your map. There's a lot of stuff going on here. I won't touch on all of it now, but that's what you're looking at here. Now down below, your family trackers are showing you your 3 tokens for each family, 3 counters, men, woman, child, as well as a place for horses, as well as a place for their extra family counter. The way the game works is a primary family counter looks like this, and it has different values, and it's very simple. Evasion, the family designator, A, B, C, or D, it's not a rating, it's just, that's family A. And then the third digit there is their ferocity. If you flip it, you can see that their evasion rating goes down, but the ferocity goes up. If ferocity has to go up again, you simply grab the next counter, and you'll see that now ferocity has gone to 2, evasion to 0, and finally, the highest ferocity value is 3, evasion of -1. So what else are we looking at? We've got the family being tracked here. You've got out-of-play counters ready to come into the game at any time over here. You've got your elder display. Your family elders play a very, very important role in this game. You want to try to keep as many elders going as possible. Passage of time, really interesting mechanic. As counters get added to the passage of time box, if you get to the point where you make a passage of time turn sequence, you'll get to either create new families with these folks or fill in empty spots in the current families. Over in the upper right, you have the enemy out of play box that you see is right now is a mess of tokens after I played this last game. We'll clean those up. You have 3, notice that these are bowls. These are, the artwork on the board represents these as big bowls. So it's kind of interesting that, again, the thematic layout of this board is incredible. Subjugation of New Mexico, I've got 3 cubes in there. That's going to give the enemy 3 extra APs every time they take a turn. You've got rated cubes going here and recovery in here. There's a cycle of these cubes as they get put back into this cool draw bag that comes with the game. Over here on the enemy instruction part of the board, this is the brains behind the AI, and it works so well. Really can't speak enough about how well this works. But this is the active column for the enemy. You're going to roll to see if any of these flip. Then if the enemy has enough action points available, because you'll have counters down here, they'll execute as many as they can per the number on the bottom. A Comanche raid would cost 3 enemy action points. You resolve that. Those enemy action points go back to the out of play, and if they have more APs available, you do the next action. Then once all actions are completed, you're going to move these up. These are going to cycle down to the bottom, and it's going to be the player's turn. Now, during the game, these counters may flip, and these counters may actually trade spots with counters from the standby column. There's enough randomization that it allows you to plan for what's coming, but you never are completely sure. So that is how the enemy AI works at a high level. Now, the game is driven by these cards, much like other GMT games and much like the States of Siege series games. These cards are going to tell you what to do. There are 2 general kinds of cards. There's ceremony and operations cards, and I'll explain those. Sorry, I will explain those in a minute. And then finally, you're going to have these event cards. which will force victory point checks as well. The way these cards work is really well done, and I'll talk a little bit about that as we get set up for a new game. So before we get set up for a new game, I do want to cover something that I think some of the how to play videos and previous reviews of this game have failed to mention, and it makes it a little bit tough on the new player. How do you win? It's so overwhelming at first that you know, folks maybe sometimes miss the big picture, and it's really not that complicated. Here, let me show you a page from the playbook. You'll notice that for this scenario that I'm playing, you have this table here that shows you the very simple conditions for a major victory down to a major defeat. 3 or higher, 1 or 2, 0, -1, -2, -3. What are those talking about? Simply the difference between these two values on the tracker. Now, these will get modified throughout the game for various reasons, but basically it's just asking you how much higher or lower is the Navajo military from the morale of the Spanish for this particular scenario. If we can come through just 3 points higher, that's a major victory. 2 points higher, all right, minor victory. 1 point higher, minor victory, the same. That's going to be a minor defeat, and of course a minor defeat, 1 less, and a major defeat otherwise. So throughout the game, just keep your eyes on these 2 counters more than anything else, and do what you can to keep military up and morale down, and you'll have a fighting chance. It is not as easy as it sounds. All right, so we just finished a game. We got our butts handed to us about halfway through the deck. Didn't do a good job, so we want to try again. This game is like eating a bag of potato chips. Once you're done, you have to play another. This is a potato chip game, is what I'll refer to it as. Setup is really easy. Takes you maybe about 5 minutes. Let me walk you through it, and we'll get started on a few turns of a new game. So I've got my dice tray up here in the upper left-hand corner of the board because there's nothing on that board we need to look at. I've already had and gone and set up my tracker over here on the left. We've got movement points defaulted to 0 for now. We have 3 APs to start the game, action points. The military rating for the Dene is at 5, and the culture rating is at 9. The Spanish start out at 5 morale, equal to the military rating, so again we're right there at the even point as far as a victory point check would go, and their ferocity is set to 4. Their ferocity is important. As the ferocity raises, obviously it's going to impact how aggressive they are as they try to move westward and subdue the Navajo. And as it moves down, it gets easier to deal with them. And of course, let's keep that morale below our military rating. So we've got our counters set over here. Let's reset the families now on the board. So first thing we need to do is we're going to clear these missions that will get placed on the board. These are bad. When these get placed on the board, you want to do your best to get those off the map. Missions are bad. So let's toss these up there for now. We're going to start the game with 3 families. So we're going to clear out the D family from the last game. We're just going to put them back here in the out of play box. We're going to get our passage of time guys back reset into family C, actually. So now we have 3 families. We're going to choose one area in these 3 territories to put the families into at whatever ferocity we want. We're going to go ahead and choose 0 ferocity for all of them. So we're going to put family A in area 2 of Shiprock. We're going to put family B in area 2 of San Juan Valley, and family C in area 2 of the Zuni Mountains. Where you place these family counters is totally up to you and is part of the strategy for your opening of the game. For me, I'm just doing this for the demonstration purposes. Now let's make sure we've cleared all the drought counters from each territory. So 3 total from my last game, drought counters, so we don't need those in the game right now. Feeding your people is very important in this game. When you have a passage of time turn, you're going to need to feed your people, and if you don't have enough food, they may die. Let's get rid of any of these intruder counters. So we have this nice get rid of family D from the board. There's no family D right now, so we're going to get rid of these intruder counters, put those in our draw cup. You'll notice that there are no D, E, or F families on the board. You start with 3. You're going to need to add more families to the board to get those victory points up by settling territories and keeping yourselves strong and in the game. Clear the resources box, we don't have any sheep yet, and reset the elder display. We get 3 elders to start the game. They start in those 3 boxes. Okay, so our family counters are good. We've taken everything off the map. Our families are set down here. So let's go ahead and reset the enemy AI. Get those in the picture. And also, we're going to go ahead and remove all the cubes from the board and put them in this cool bag that comes with the game. So there are lots of cubes in this bag, and maybe I should talk about what these cubes represent if I can remember. You'll notice we've got white, whoops, there's one more in there. All right, so we've got, when you're raiding New Mexico, we've got horses, we've got sheep, we've got slaves, we've got bad ones, the red ones, subjugation of New Mexico, they'll go in the subjugation box. This is really bad. This is a battle. This is an army you're going to have to fight. Black is a choice of whatever kind of animal you want. And these also have a dual use when you're fighting battles. Lots of interesting stuff going on here when you're raiding. So you get a cool randomization element here, goes into the draw bag, and this will just go out of play for a moment. You're also going to need a couple draw cups. I'm using my Atlanta Braves cap for the corn. So these are, if you plant corn and you harvest it, when it's unharvested, it looks like that. When it's harvested, it has the value of that particular corn counter. You need a draw cup for intruders. I'm using my Arizona Diamondbacks cup. So each one of these intruder counters, when they go on the map, will go on that side, and then they'll be revealed to be any number of good or bad events. Okay, over to the AI. I take another draw cup. I take all the existing AI, add it to the 2 that were removed prior to the start of the last game. So take all these AI counters, put them in your cup, give it a good shake. You're going to take 2, and these are not going to be used in the next game. So in the next game I play, H and M are both gone. Build and subvert on one side on H, subvert on the other. M is slaves on one side, and a build instruction on the other. So you take the remaining counters, and you're going to put them in alphabetical order. Obviously, the game is designed with these commands in mind. Based on the phase of the game, these counters will flip and move around to reflect the most appropriate actions for the enemy at that point in the game. And you just go in alphabetical order. So we got rid of M and H, so you won't see those. So you go A, then B, C, D, E, F, then G, H is gone, so I, J, K, L, and M is gone, N. All right, so now the AI is set up for the game. Done. All right, what's left? The deck. All right, so let's take our unused cards from our previous game. Let's take our discard deck from the previous game. And what we need to do is we need to separate out the event cards. So I'm just going to go through. So there's an event card, Pueblo Revolt. Let's see, Mexican Independence, and Settlers Colonized New Mexico. Now you take the remaining operations and ceremony cards. You're going to give them a shuffle. All right, so those are all shuffled up. Now you're going to take your remaining 5 cards, 41 through 45. We're missing 43. Where did 43 go? I think I may have missed it. There it is. the Viceroy de Galvez. So give these a shuffle again. Now, these event cards are, taking you through the history of those 200 and some 50 years. And what you're going to do, let me just slide the board up. It's pretty neat the way this works, is you take the cards, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. Okay, there's your 5 events that are going to happen and cause you to do victory point checks. Now check this out. The first card you're going to hit, the victory point check rating, sorry for the glare, is 8 victory point check. What you're going to do, it's again really simple. You're going to take the victory points that you've earned from the board and you're just going to do a subtraction. You're going to take you're going to take your victory points minus this 8. If it's a positive number, good things for you. If it's a negative number, bad things for you. So you want to keep your eye on the map, on the victory points that you've currently earned, based on which number is coming up next. This isn't random. You're going to start with an 8 victory point check, and then it's going to go up by 2 to 10, by 2 to 12, by 2 to 14, and then finally the game's going to end at Mexican independence. Now, again, remember, you get victory points by having families in a territory. Just by having a family in the Zuni Mountains, that's 3 victory points. Just by having a family in Shiprock, that's 4 victory points, etc. So obviously, when you get to the first card, you don't need any families in any but the first 3 eastmost territories to get 10 victory points, which will give you a +2 when you get to this victory point check, which again, good things for the Dene. All right, so back to setup. So flip these cards over and simply deal out 8 cards on top of each in any way you want. You could go back and forth serpentine or just 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What an amazing video. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so there you go. So now you got 8 stacks. Now you're just going to take each stack. You're going to shuffle it. You're going to randomize that event. So we don't know where at the bottom of the deck Mexican independence is going to happen because we shuffled it. You're going to shuffle the next one, and you're simply going to put it on top of that one. You're going to shuffle the next one and put it on top. Shuffle the next one on top there. And finally, your beginning 9 cards, shuffle, put on top, and there you go. The deck, the engine that drives the game, has been done. Let's slide this back down. Put that there, wherever you want. There's a little spot for the current card right there. And the last step. One of the cool aspects that really does make this game replayable is sorting out your bonus cards here, your culture cards. Consider these bonuses that you are going to pick and choose for your playthrough, one at the beginning of the game, and then at each victory point check, you're going to get an opportunity to spend culture or military points to buy more. Okay, at the beginning of the game, you are going to be able to choose one of these to ensure is in the game. I'm going to go ahead and choose weaving. And then for the rest of them, you are going to randomly remove 3 of these sets of culture cards from the game, and they won't be available during a victory point check. So you take out the level 1 card for each other possible culture bonus. And you shuffle them, select 3, and these 3 for this game, Masters of the Mesa, Sharp Traders, and Horsemanship, will not be available for my playthrough. What I did choose to hold on to was weaving. At the beginning of the game, you get to free, without having to pay the culture point, I'm going to get weaving, which is I like to play with this card because it allows me to add more trade goods to the resources box. So the benefit here is place one of the trade goods counters at the start of the game into the resources box. And again, there's a penalty if my culture points fall, but for now we don't have to worry about that. So right away, we take one of the trade goods that was going to be unavailable at the start of the game into the resources box. So for a total of 4 available trade resources through the beginning phase of this game, and I can add more as the game goes on, versus the 3 that you normally start out with. If you have this game, you know what I'm talking about. Trade goods are incredibly, incredibly powerful. So we probably won't get a time to get into the strategy of that during this video, but you know, just know that's just one of the possible strategies when playing this game. So I'm going to go ahead and put that card up here as a reminder that it is in play. All right, we are ready to go and play through a couple turns of Navajo Wars. Okay, so we're ready to start playing. Now, Navajo Wars is a procedurally heavy card. There's no way around that. I don't mind it. I like flowchart procedural games. I'm a solitaire player, and I feel at home with that kind of game. So I went ahead and made my own player aids. You know, that look and work in a way that I'm more familiar with. These are available on Board Game Geek in the files section if you want to check them out. Goes over a sequence of play, enemy operations, some strategy notes, and some gameplay notes, the planning, take actions, and passage of time phases of the game. Then you have the great flowchart for tribal raids and enemy raids. Now, this particular version is an updated version that I printed out from GMT's website. I printed it myself on cardstock, so this isn't exactly the one that came with the game because they've got living rules going on and they're constantly making changes and improving them, doing clarifications, so I recommend that. And then finally, the game comes with this great trifold that does cover most of the stuff that I have in my player aid. It's just that I found, you know, my player aid to help me out a bit. So great trifold with all the tables that you need, all the result charts, etc. So maybe we'll take a look at these for the first few turns. So you will need, you know, this stuff in front of you as you're playing the game. Don't let it scare you off. It is a procedural game, but it's just so much fun. Okay, so it's a card-driven game. So sequence of play, you know, take a look at the player aid. Again, you're not going to need this all the time, but you're going to start by drawing a card. You're going to go through an operations segment. You're going to have some events and then the discard phase, and you go back to draw a card again. So start by drawing the card. We start off with an operations card, one of the most common cards in the deck. Player may preempt for 3 action points. Enemy collects 2 action points if the player preempts, otherwise he gets 4 action points. Now, this is a great decision point mechanism in the game where you need to decide at the start of your turn whether you want to preempt and go first or let the enemy, which is the normal process, go first. If you let him go first, he's going to get more action points to execute his yellow counters over there. But if you preempt him and spend some of your action points, he's going to get less. So we know he's got a subjugate for 1 action point and a subjugate for 2 action points likely happening in this first turn. And he's going to get 4 action points. That would give him enough to do those 2 subjugates, but not the subsequent build. Or we could spend a couple action points and go first. Well, let's just go ahead and preempt him. And we'll go over what we can do as the player when we do that. So we're going to spend 3 action points. We're going to preempt him. We're going to go first. So my 3 action points go down to 0. So I have left with 0 action points. What I do is I usually take 1 die, put it over here, just so I know the enemy has a turn coming up. It's just a visual reminder. So This card also has major events and minor events. Don't look at those yet. First, we have to get through the operational segment. So what do? We can do one of three things. We can plan, we can take actions, or we can conduct a passage of time. I can tell you right now, passage of time is something that you're going to do after you've built up some family members here in the passage of time box. It's going to take you through a number of steps, and we are not going to get to it in this video. So right now, we're going to focus either on planning or take actions. At the beginning of the game, you have a choice. You can either start raiding Santa Fe and maybe find some sheep, some slaves, some horses, or you can do some planning and start building up your family, taking elder actions, buying trade goods. Let's show you a raid though. I think that'll be fun. So we are going to choose take actions. Now when you do that and you don't have horses in play and you don't have the horsemanship ability, you simply get 6 movement points per family. You even have a counter here to remind you how many families are remaining to be activated. You're going to activate one family at a time and go through each. We're going to start with family A right here in Shiprock. And we're going to remind ourselves that we have 2 families remaining to go. Family A is going to conduct some conduct some not tribal raids. They're going to conduct some raids on Santa Fe. Why? We're looking for stuff. We're looking for horses. We're looking for slaves. We're looking for sheep. So if you look on the raid table that comes with the game, here are the possible cubes that we can pick out of the box, and it shows you what the results are. We don't want red. That's going to add to the subjugation of New Mexico. These blocks will pretty much permanently end up on the board and give the enemy a +1 action point every turn. We don't want to see that. We also don't want to see green, because we're going to have to fight a battle, or possibly other bad things are going to happen. Blue is not in the bag right now in this scenario. We want to see yellow, brown, white, or black, because black allows us to choose either a horse or a sheep. So we have to spend how many action points? We have to spend 1, 2. You always count the value not in parentheses. That's for movement with horses and some other activities, but you just count 1, 2. That's the cost to raid New Mexico. So 1 raid costs 2 movement points. Had we started out the game here, it would have only cost 1 movement point, but we chose here, so it's going to cost us 2. We're going to choose 1 random cube from this bag, and we got a sheep. So we're feeling pretty good. This is going to go in the raided cubes box. You take a sheep counter, you place it in your resources. So now we have 1 trade goods and 1 sheep to begin the game. Now, do you want to push your luck? Of course you do. You're going to do 1 more raid. You're going to move your movement points down to 2, because again, it costs 2 to raid. We're going to try 1 more. Pushing our luck. All right, we got a slave. We're going to go ahead and put a child counter here in the passage of time and start building up our passage of time families. All right. We have 2 movement points left. How lucky do we feel? Again, we do not want to pull a red or a green. We spend the last 2 action points, movement points, sorry, and we get a horse. So that was a very good raid of New Mexico segment. Put the horses over here in our resources. Now at any time we can use these trade goods, we can use the horses, we can assign it to any family. It's really nice how flexible the system is with regards to how you use your resources. So family A has now used all their movement points, they're done. You don't do anything to the counter, you just know that they're done, and we're going to move on to family B. We'll make a note over here that we still have 1 family to activate after B. So B here, they're going to plant some corn. That's going to be one of their actions. And the cost to do that is simply 4 plus the value of their area. They start with 6 movement points. I'm not even going to bother putting it on the board because 4 plus 2 equals 6. So what you're going to do, you're just going to take your corn corn cup, you're gonna make sure you've got it hidden side facing you, and you put it on the board. And that's their move for this turn. And again, moving on to, they've spent all their movement points now, and now family C. They're taking their action. They're also going to plant corn. Same thing. Hidden side up. Put it down right there. The next turn, they can spend the same amount of movement points in that particular area, 4 plus 2, 6, to harvest the corn, and they would go in the resources. I'm not going to get into the details of a passage of time, like I said before, but that's when you would use the sheep, the corn, the natural variability of these areas to feed your population of counters down here in the families, as well as the elder display. When you're activating your families to take actions, like I said, you don't use action points. You look at the number of elders that you have in your elder display, 3, and now you either add the number of family counters in the Canyon de Chelly or 1, whichever is highest. So we could have activated 4 families at this point in time. 1, 2, 3 plus 1 equals 4, but we only had 3 families to activate. So all 3 have activated. They've all used their movement points. They don't have to, but they did. And our turn is done. Now, it's the enemy's turn to play. We'll just move this dice out of the way, this die out of the way, because we know it's their turn. And they're going to now get only 2 APs, because we preempted them. So remember, they're only going to get 2 APs. There's no red counters here in the subjugation of New Mexico, so that's good. So you take a couple of these AP counters, you put it down here in the enemy AP available area. And you begin taking actions for the enemy. But before you do that, like I said, it's not always as clear as it may seem. You're going to take 2 dice. You're going to go ahead and roll them. And if possible, you're going to flip the counters in the 1 position and the 6 position on this particular roll of a 1 and a 6. Now, notice the counter in the 1 position in the active column has a red bar. That means you can't flip it. That's not going to flip. Oh, and so does the 1 in the 6 position. Had a 3, 4, or 5 been rolled, it could have been flipped. So right now, nothing is changing. It's exactly as the tribe thought they're going to go for subjugate. So you move it over. It's going to cost them 1 action point to do the subjugate. And if you're a newer player, you go, what does subjugate do again? So you go ahead and you go to your player aid and you look at subjugate, you find subjugate on the chart and you read what it says. Basically, you're going to spend the action points per the instruction on the counter. We spent our 1 action point, and now we're going to draw a cube from the raid pool for each AP. Now, this is interesting because it does one of 2 things. It's either going to put a red cube in the subjugation of New Mexico box and add to enemy APs on future turns, or it's more likely going to take away from the cool stuff that's there in Santa Fe for you to raid. So either way, it's bad. The one place it could be good is if we get that that green pull, because that'll take the chances of a battle off the board for the moment. But we got a red. Exactly what the Spanish were trying to do. All right, so in the next turn, the bad guys are going to get 1 extra action point. They don't get it right now. They don't get it till their next turn. So that's it for that action for the enemy. They are left with 1 AP left. The next command on the active column is a value 2 subjugate, which they do not have enough action points to execute. So that does not get executed. So instead what happens is we reset the AI, move everything up. This one comes down and slides over, and now the AI's turn is done, and it's the enemy instructions are reset for the next round. Now we have to go back to the operations card now that both of us have taken our turn, and we see that the major event is Apaches raiding New Mexico. Draw a cube from the raid pool. This is not good for us, because what you'll see is that even if they draw that green cube that we want them to, we're placing it back into the raid pool, back into the bag. It could be a red cube, which again is going to further subjugate New Mexico, bad, or they're going to remove one of our slave, sheep, horse, or wild card cubes, and bummer. So, major event, Apaches are raiding, and what happened? We choose a random cube. More New Mexico's, more of our Navajo in New Mexico have been subjugated, so there's the second cube. Not a good start. All right, and then we go to the minor event. Maybe things will get better. No. Now we're going to roll to see which territory suffers drought. So we're going to go ahead and do that, but just let me tell you, trade goods are pretty cool. If we had more trade goods, we could actually cancel that minor event. We'd have to, spend them and use them, but, it's one of the uses of trade goods. There are many, many, many good uses for trade goods. Don't forget that if you start bringing this game to your table. So we're going to roll one die. Where is there going to be drought? We rolled a 2, so you take a drought token and you find area 2. You see these die symbols? Area 2 is San Juan Valley. And now San Juan Valley, their food value there is 3 minus however many drought counters there are. 3 minus 1. So now you're only going to get 2 food during a passage of time versus the 3 you might normally get. And there you go. That's the end of the first turn. Let's do another turn. All right, we got a ceremony card. Ceremony cards are a lot of fun. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to conduct an enemy way effect if you had one in your hand. We don't, so we move on to step 2. We can either discard this card, just get rid of it, or we can collect a woman counter for our passage of time, and we can hold on to this card, and it'll be worth a die roll of 1 in a future turn, at which point we would spend it and discard it. Now here's the thing about these ceremony cards. If you decide to hold on to it, you need to use it, because if you don't, the next time a ceremony card is drawn, you're going to have to do the enemy way. Okay? It's a nice mechanic. It's a risk reward for holding on to one of these cards. It's great when you can use it for the value of the die roll. But if you hold on to it too long and a second ceremony card is drawn, it's basically going to tell you to conduct an enemy way effect on all the ceremony cards in your hand and reset the cube. So we're going to hold on to this. So we're going to take the woman counter. We're going to put it into the passage of time. So our passage of time is continuing to grow. And we're going to remember that we have a die roll value of 1 in our hand to use if we need it. All right, so that's it for that card draw. You move on to the next card draw. It's another operations card. Let's see what we've got here. We can preempt for 3 APs. Enemy collects 4 APs if we preempt, otherwise 5. Well, remember, we don't have any APs right now. They're set to 0. So we're not going to be able to preempt. So right away, we know that the enemy is going to get to go first. But this is interesting. We have a bonus here. If on our turn we do a planning operation, the elders are going to get to execute additional actions. So we have to keep that in mind. So we might want to do planning next turn. But let's go ahead and see what the enemy is going to do. So enemy gets to go first. They're going to get 5 action points. So you count out 5. You bring them down here. They now have a total of 6 sitting down here. Next step, roll the dice. See which commands possibly flip. We got a 1 and a 4. By the way, I forgot to mention, if you roll doubles, you're going to go ahead and switch positions between standby and active over here. But we didn't get doubles. We got a 1 and a 4. 1 cannot flip. It has a stripe. 4 can. This raid token becomes expand. All right. So we know we've got enough tokens for the subjugate. So we're sliding it over. We're spending the 2 enemy actions for subjugation. And remember, for each AP, you're going to pull a cube. So we're pulling 2 cubes. All right. We got rid of the army, but we also got rid of a wild card sheep or horse cube. Those go into the rated. Actually, they don't. They go into the recovery box. I forgot. On subjugation turns for the enemy, anything drawn that's not red goes into the recovery box. Now, I can't remember if any of these came from the subjugation step, so we're just going to leave those there for now. But just know that's the way that works. And why that is important is because when you reset the cubes, which is coming up, you move these cubes to here, and these cubes actually go back in the bag first, and then you move. That's how a reset happens. So that's where we are at the end of that subjugate command. Now, he's still got 1, 2, 3, 4 action points left, and they've got to build. So we're going to take that build. We're going to spend 3 action points. And I've played this game enough. I know what build means. You're going to take a mission, and you're going to put it at space 1 of the lowest value territory that doesn't already have an outpost. So outposts in the Spanish area are these missions. So there you go. We've got our first mission on the board there at area 1. Leaves them with 1 AP left. And look at this. We've got a subvert token, the next on the enemy AI command list. It says 1-3. What does that mean? It basically means spend as many, up to 3, if possible, to execute this. And we have 1, so we're going to spend it. So that's the end of the enemy's APs. And we're going to do a subvert. Now with subversion, this is where you're going to look at your enemy instruction summary, because this has a lot of ifs and then. So you gotta read these things from time to time to make sure you're doing it right. Spend the APs per the counter. We did that. If there's less than 3 cubes in the subjugation of New Mexico, conduct a subjugate. There's only 2. So instead of doing a subvert, we are going to do a subjugation action. So we spent 1. So that means we are going to go ahead and go up to subjugate. Remember, spend per instructions. For each AP, draw 1 cube. And the cubes, if it's red, it goes in the subjugation of Mexico. If it's not, it goes into the recovery box. So, Spanish are at it again, trying to quell our people here in New Mexico. They spend 1, and we lose a sheep that goes to the recovery box. So that's it for the enemy turn. So let's go ahead and reset. Again, move everything up first, and then now down, over, and up. Whoops. Down, over, and up. Enemy turn is done. They've got a foothold here in Shiprock. We're going to want to do something about that. But now that it's the player's turn, and we're going to get a bonus if we do a planning operation, and I'm thinking we can possibly use this die roll here. Let's go ahead and do a planning operation, since we haven't shown you how to do one of those yet. And again, you're going to check your charts, and let's step through this together. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to place the population counter matching the symbol on this particular card. So right here, don't know how well you can see that, but the symbol in the bottom of the card is of an elder. So we're going to take our elder, we're going to put him in the passage of time box as step 1. Step 2, we're going to collect an action point for each elder on the elder display. So if you were wondering how do you earn action points, here you go. We just earned 3 during this planning phase, so now we have 3 action points to spend. Now we can attempt free elder actions. These don't take any action points. These are free. And we get 3 of them. And I'm sorry, before we do that, after I added those action points for the 3 elders, I should have moved them over 1. So now we have 1 elder who's going to be successful on his action on a roll of 1 to 2, roll of 1 to 2, and this final elder down here only successful on a roll of 1. As you do more planning actions, the elders become more proficient in their elder abilities, and their die roll ranges increase. Of note is during a passage of time, these elders may also die based on that same die roll range. So you want to take advantage of them as they move up, but know that as they move up, it's more likely they are going to pass away. So what can the elders do? They can move culture down 1 at the bonus of moving military up. They can do the reverse. They can trade military for culture. And they can also reduce an enemy's ferocity by 1. We don't need to do that right now. We haven't increased any... Actually, you know what? We did. Let me stop right here, and let me go back a couple turns and make a correction. This is going to happen while you're playing the game. This is actually kind of perfect. So this is a great example of what it's like to play a game like this. As I'm talking and thinking, I'm noticing that our family counter over here is still set to a ferocity of 0. What was I thinking? You can't raid New Mexico and not increase the ferocity of your family and also impact future raids. So we forgot. We raided Santa Fe 3 times. That's going to raise our ferocity all the way up to 3. So we need to have that counter now over here. So I know somebody watching the video caught that, and who knows, maybe I've made other mistakes. This game is still fun even if you make mistakes, so don't be scared about missing things or making mistakes. The more you play, just like what happened with me, the more you catch things. So, so let's go back to where we were. We fixed the ferocity there of family A, and we are going to go ahead and continue with our planning phase. And I was talking about what the elders can do. And it was the fact that they can reduce the ferocity of a family by 1 as one of their actions. So let's go ahead and do that. So you can only do this, you can only impact the ferocity of a family once per turn. So even if we wanted to, we couldn't go all the way back down to 0 with all 3 elders. We can do this once. We're going to go ahead and use this card to guarantee success. So we spend it by saying we rolled a die roll of 1 for this first elder here, who has the value of 1. We get to flip the counter down to 2. So we've reduced their ferocity a bit. It's still a little bit higher than we'd like it to be, but it's a more manageable 2 now, and we discard the ceremony card. So that was our first free elder action. For our second elder actions, what we want to do is we want to try to raise our military, because right now it's even with the Spanish morale. Let's try to get this up. So we can trade 1 culture for 1 military. And both of our elders are at a dice hit range of 1 to 2. So we're just going to go ahead and roll 2 dice and hope for a 1 or a 2. And we didn't get any. So the other elders were unable to do anything. Nothing changes with our military or culture counters on the display over here. And our free elder actions are complete. Now we have the opportunity to buy trade goods. We have these 3 action points over here. Do we want to spend them for trade goods? Well, remember, we're going to get, because we did this planning operation, we're going to get 3 more free elder actions coming up. So I feel okay about spending some APs on trade goods, because trade goods are really, really powerful. Basically, for every woman in play, you can spend 1 AP and get 1 trade good. So let's go ahead and load up on trade goods. We're going to spend all of our action points. 3 trade goods now become available in the resources box. And that's it for step 4. Step 5, we can conduct tribal warfare or diplomacy at the cost of an AP. And where that comes into play is if we could see that we had Comanche or Utes coming up the active row ready to attack, we can actually perform diplomacy or warfare to try to move them back to the standby row. Now we don't need to worry about that right now, so we're going to go ahead and go to the last step, which is to reset the cubes. So unfortunately, we have to put the green cube back in the box, back in the bag, along with the white and black. And these cubes in the rated go into recovery. Unfortunately, those stay there. Those aren't going anywhere. It's a nice permanent bonus for the bad guys. So that's it for our planning phase. Now we move back to the major event, and we see influential elders. If planning operation executed, it was. Each elder on the elder display may execute an elder action which automatically succeeds, otherwise no event. Automatically succeeds, that's awesome. So what are we going to do? 1, 2, 3, automatic successes. We are going to get our military up by 1, by 2, and then finally 3. Nah, just kidding. That would actually be good if we could do that. Once they're equal, you can't do that again. So both are going to be at 7 right now, which is great. So we spent 2. We still have a third free elder action to do. We're going to go ahead and use the final elder action to get 1 AP. That's one of the other things they can do, is they can spend an action to get you another action point. So there we go. So we use that cool major event segment to get our military up at the expense of some culture, that's okay, and to get us another action point. And now the minor event segment is going to be another reset cubes. So at the end of planning, we reset the cubes, and we're going to do it again at the end of this card, thanks to the minor event. So we're going to get a new supply of horses, sheep, and slaves into the bag for a possible raid on Santa Fe. And discard. There are some checks in the game at the discard phase. We're too early in the game for those to matter at the moment. So it's a simple discard. And let's flip one more card before we end this portion of the video. And we get the Pueblo Revolt. So let's go through another major segment of the game, which is one of these event cards and a subsequent victory check. Victory point, victory check. So first thing, we're going to return all the cubes in recovery, raided cubes in subjugation to the raid pool. All right, so pretty cool. Now I told you these were like a permanent bonus. This is the one exception. This is going to give the Navajo some breathing room for a short amount of time. So we've reset the cubes. Second step, we're going to place this card face up to let us know that it's in play, and the enemy steps are going to change while this card is in play. We are not going to follow this display. Instead, they're going to get 1 action point per turn, and each turn is going to be a subjugate, which is basically pulling a counter out of that bag. Eventually, they're going to pull all the counters out of the bag, and this card will cease to be in play once we have the 3 red cubes in the subjugation bowl. But we're going to take advantage of the time while we can, while they don't. Now, the final step on this card is to do the victory point check. So let's walk through that so you can see how that works in the game. And again, all this information is another procedure on the player card that comes with the game. So for a victory check, you're going to step through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 steps. I won't bore you with the text. I'll let you look at the map while I go through the steps. First thing is we're going to subtract the victory point value of the card from the total victory point value of all the territories with 1 or more families. I already walked you through this. We know we have 10. 3 plus 4 plus 3 is 10. 10 minus 8 is 2. If the difference is a positive number, we're going to add a military point. If the difference was negative, the result is the number of military points lost. So, this is where the game gets you. Even if you had, 6 more victory points than that card, highly unlikely, actually probably impossible, you only get a boost of 1 military point. But that's okay, we'll take it. So military goes up from 7 to 8. All right, I like it. Now we're going to subtract the enemy morale from military points and reduce the enemy morale to 0. So let me move this over so it's a little bit more clear. So here's what's going to happen. Morale is at 5 for the Spanish. Our military is 8, difference of 3. You move morale down to 0, military down to 3. Okay? So it sort of resets the difference of those 2 counters. Now, if the player has 0 military and culture at this point, the game is over. This is typically where you lose the game, because either military or culture is going to get low. If it gets to 0 and you have to lose more of that item, culture or military, you lose 2 of the other item. So if I had a culture of 0 and the game told me to lose 1 culture, I would have to lose 2 military, or vice versa. And that's usually where you end up with both values being 0, game over. Okay, but right now, we did not end the game in a major defeat just yet, so we move on. Now we're going to increase the military points by the number of man counters in play. Cool. So now you see the value of having these man counters in play. 1, 2, 3. That's 3 more military points. 1, 2, 3. Unfortunately, the Spanish morale also goes 1, 2, 3 right along with you. That's okay. We're still 3 points ahead. Now we're going to add 1 enemy morale for each outpost in play. Ah, crap. We've got that outpost over there. They're going to get a bump in morale to 4. So now the difference between military and morale is only 2. Okay, we can deal with that. Again, you want to keep those outposts off the map when you can. Now we're going to increase culture points by the number of women in play. So women help us with trade goods. They also help us with culture. We can't go above 9 in this step, which is kind of a drag, because right now our culture is at 7. We have 3 women. We could go to 10, but you can't. The rules say you can only go as high as 9. But you can through the game, through other mechanisms, you can get it higher than 9, and you'll see that the counters actually allow for that. So culture's at 9. We would also lose culture points now. After gaining them for women, we'd lose them if we had any forts in play. There are not forts. Those outposts and missions are not forts. Forts are a separate counter. Now, we can spend culture or military points to buy a cultural development card. So remember those cool cards at the beginning of the game? You know, we've started the game with this weaving card. Now we can buy another one if we want. So let's just, for the sake of argument, say we wanted to maybe we've got horses. Let's say we wanted to also venture into horsemanship. So we're going to go ahead and spend one of the culture points and get the benefit of horsemanship. Will allow us 1 more movement point when we take actions. So we spend a culture point down to 8, and now we have this card in play. So now we have level 1 weaving and level 1 horsemanship in the game. All right, finally, you have to reset your APs. So it's kind of a drag. We had 1 AP, but imagine, and this will happen, imagine that you had like 10 APs or 12 APs and you pull one of these event cards. It's not fun. You lose all those APs, so the game has this great balancing act between risk and reward, spending your APs versus saving them. So APs reset to 0 during this victory point check. And return all cubes in the raided cubes and recovery box to the raid pool. That's already done. There's nothing over there. And now, this one hurts too. The last step is removing half of the counters in the passage of time, rounding up, which is a real drag. So we have 3 counters in the passage of time box. We have to get rid of 2 of them because 1.5 rounded up is 2. Again, tough decision. I was hoping to start building a family here. I'm going to go ahead and just remove the child. Actually, no. You know what? A child can become an adult or an elder during a passage of time phase. So I'm going to remove the elder and the woman for now. Children are pretty useful when it comes to passage of time. As an overview for other events that are going to happen, let me just walk through a couple. At times, the events on the cards may ask you to place an intruder counter, where you're going to randomly roll the dice and figure out where one of these markers is going to go. And at the point at which you have a family actually move on top of that intruder counter, you flip it over, and you see the event. In this case, I would have gotten some trade goods for free. So you don't necessarily want to avoid these counters just because it says intruder. A lot of times, maybe 50% of the time, it's going to be something good. When you spend actions to harvest corn, as long as you've still got a family on that corn marker, you just flip it over, add it to your resources. So let's just say we did that. These corn markers would now go in our resources for a passage of time event where we need to feed our family. Raids, I spoke of raids. Raids are going to be nasty. Raids are going to, move in from the east. These enemy AP counters have a dual purpose. They also serve as the raid counters. So these enemy raid counters are going to come in. They're going to just start moving westward. And you have a lot of choices of what to do when your family encounters one of these raid counters, or one of the raid counters actually, pops up into your family. If you have action points, you can try to negotiate. You can try an ambush. If you don't have any action points, there's always a free evade roll. The lower you are on that track, the easier it is to evade. But you're just going to evade one more back, and they're going to get you again. Evade one more back, and they're going to keep coming at you. Unless you roll a natural 6, in which case there's special rules that allow you to move to a safer spot. But for the sake of argument, let's say they did finally end up with you. You weren't able to evade. You didn't have any action points to spend, and the battle is a major defeat. Okay? In that case, your family is pretty much wiped off the board. It's a bad incident. And what if the next card is a victory point check? You just lost the victory points for that area. So you really want to pay attention to the enemy instruction display. Keep an eye on when the raids are coming. Be prepared for them. Move your family either to deeper areas in the territory, or set it up. You can always plan ahead and see how the raid is going to follow through the map based on the value of the areas. The raids will always follow the path of least resistance, meaning the lowest number. So if I had a choice between two families, when it got to this point in the track, let's just say this point in the tracks, it's the first decision point. If you had a family here and a family here, this would cost 1, 2, 3. This would cost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they're going this way. And they're going to follow the raid up there. Oops. The raid's going to go that direction. So again, very cool mechanism. Raids are bad for you, but a lot of fun to execute. All right, so Navajo Wars. Joel Toppin's first masterpiece, I'm sure one of many more to come. I hope that the walkthrough of a few turns and the explanation of the setup gave you an idea of how accessible the game is, even though it can be kind of daunting at first. Don't be put off by that. The tutorial that comes in the playbook, every game needs to have this. Publishers out there, hear me. The tutorial is what makes this game so accessible. You run through the tutorial, you get through most of the occurrences of regular gameplay, and things start to click. And you play through your first full scenario, and more things click, and it just keeps building and building and building. But as your knowledge of the game builds and the rule set, you realize how deep the gameplay is. And I've only played the game 5 times now, and it just keeps getting deeper and deeper. The choices available to the player at any given moment are numerous. The game does not play itself. I think I saw someone ask that question on The Geek. Oh my God, no. The game does not play itself. The user has so much input into how things go for the Navajo. I wanted to express my gratitude to Joel for doing such a great job of doing the subject matter justice and treating it with such respect and care. I love the designer notes. Another comment to the publishers. Designer notes. I love to know what's going on in the designer's head when he's making the game. Joel's designer's notes really helps with that. The story he tells about playing games with a younger Navajo that gave him the idea to do this game. Just brilliant. Just great insight. And it really makes you want to play the game. The design of the game board, so much time and thought was put into that, and I appreciate that, and it shows. The mechanics themselves, the way the AI works, the artwork, the counters, the fact that the board never really gets crowded. It's great. It's such a clean interface. The procedural aspect of the game is going to turn some people off. I don't know what to say about that. I guess it's kind of a trademark of GMT games, and I'm looking at some other GMT games on my table right now that are also very procedural, flowchart driven. You know, I guess I fall into that that subset of customer base that likes that. I'm a procedural person by nature. I'm a program manager by day, gamer by night. So I like the steps. Doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't bother me that many possible actions have many different steps. So you just grab the chart and you go through it. You start memorizing things over time. You start catching mistakes over time. You saw in the video that I forgot to adjust ferocity, but it clicked. You know, it came to me. There's nothing difficult or hard about playing this game, period. The rules are ridiculously clear. There is some errata for the game on the GMT website that people, you know, have said, oh, geez, you know, here we go, look at all this errata. You know, why can't they get it right? I don't know what to say to you guys. There's so much happening in this game, sometimes things get missed. But the errata, it was really easy to go through, really easy to make some corrections. Very few corrections, just mostly minor clarifications. So you make those notes and you move on. And thank God we're working with these publishers that are creating these living rule books. I love it. With the errata and the updated charts and everything. It's just great. The support for the game is great. I've got nothing negative to say. Nothing negative to say. I'm sure if I digged hard enough I could figure it out, but that's not what this channel is about. This channel is so you guys can share, share my experiences on the tabletop. And my experience with this game has been over 2 weeks now of just gaming bliss. When I'm not playing the game, I'm thinking about it. I'm, creating my own player aids. I'm, sleeping on the strategies, thinking about what I'm going to do next time. It doesn't get any better than that. And I didn't know much about the history of the Southwest with regards to the Navajo people before playing this game, but I do now. We have a park right close to where I work called Kit Carson Park. I heard the name Kit Carson all the time. Oh, American legend, whatever. And then I read about, some of his exploits as how it pertains to the Navajo, and it's like, okay. We have that part of our history too that it's good to just know about and learn about. So, I already spent enough time with this video. It's long enough. I showed you how the game plays. So let me just wrap it up. If you have any interest in solitaire games that are heavy in theme, that are not something you take out, play for a half an hour, and put away. This is something that's going to stay on your tabletop for a little while. To play through the tutorial that first time, it's going to take you a few hours. It took me like 4 or 5 hours just to get through the tutorial, but I was learning the game and I was enjoying every minute of it. To play that tutorial scenario might take you about an hour. But then you get into the real meat of the game, the 3 different scenarios for the 3 different phases of time or periods of time in the Navajo culture. And the first one that I've been playing over and over and over and over is the Spanish one. And, first time I played that, took me 4 hours. Then I got that down to 3. And then I had an hour and a half major defeat. So, it's going to take some time to play, but it's so much fun. So if you want something that's a deeper game, it's like States of Siege on steroids. People have said that. That's exactly right. But it is so well done, and this is something everybody needs to experience. Borrow a copy, watch some playthrough videos, do whatever you can. This game deserves as big of an audience as it can garner. And Joel, if you're watching, great job. I mean, I think you can tell from the way I'm gushing that I'm really impressed. So, a big thumbs up for Navajo Wars. And look for this in my Hall of Fame episode. I just realized playing this game, okay, now I need a Hall of Fame episode so I can start inducting games into a Hall of Fame, games that will stay on my shelf forever and that I'll continue to play from time to time. The problem is I've got like this backlog of games that I want to do videos about, but I don't want to play anything but Navajo Wars right now, and that is the best compliment I think I can give the game. All right, so if you're watching this video, if you're visiting my channel for the first time, please subscribe. Would love to have you. We also have a Facebook page. Look for that, a link to that here on YouTube as well. If you're watching this over on Board Game Geek, come over to the YouTube channel to subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. And that's it. So Navajo Wars, 2 thumbs up, 5 out of 5, you know, whatever rating system you want to use. This isn't a traditional game review channel. So thanks a lot for watching, and I will talk to you guys soon.